Today, we're going to use Chavant clay to sculpt a white-tailed deer. I've been interested in trying out some different types of sculptures, so here we go. We're starting with an armature, and I'm using a wood base to build up the bulk of the torso and pelvis. This helps create a strong foundation before adding clay. With the base in place, I'm starting to rough in the main forms, blocking out the general shapes of the deer before refining any details. Chavant clay is great because it stays workable for a very long time. It's an oil-based clay, and it allows me to push and pull the forms as needed. At this stage, I'm paying close attention to the proportions, making sure the legs, torso, and neck are balanced. A common mistake when sculpting animals is getting the limbs' length slightly off, which can throw off the entire look. Constant measuring and referencing from real deer anatomy helps keep this accurate. I'm pretty new to animal sculpture. I've done a few in the past, but I've always admired artists who could capture the movement and spirit of wildlife in clay. In the future, I'd love to talk about some of the greats like Rembrandt, Bugatti, and Antoine Barrier, both masters of animal sculpture who created incredible lifelike and expressive pieces. As I start to refine the form, I'm focusing on anatomy, and I'm referencing a lot of anatomy from images on Google Images of deer. Capturing the lean but powerful structure of a deer is quite difficult. They have a natural elegance to them, so I want to make sure the flow of the muscles and the posture feel right. Studying real life references is key here. I have seen plenty of white-tailed deer in my area. They're abundant. One of the main issues I've found is that maybe I should have used all wire instead of wood. The wood keeps the main torso stiff, which is great for stability. But I wanted to create a slightly lean or a more dynamic pose. I'd have to be very careful with how I build up the clay. It makes me think about future projects and how the armature choice can really affect the final pose and expression. When sculpting, reference is everything. I use BREF to store and organize all my images. And I have a little laptop on the side where I keep and refer to them. But the best reference is always life. Nothing beats studying a real animal or person in person directly in front of you. Unfortunately, the last time I tried to capture a deer for reference, well, let's just say it didn't end up too well. You'll notice many similarities between a horse and a deer. When you study anatomy, you can relate the anatomy of a horse to a deer. The thing that's going to be different is the proportions. While deer have their unique features, studying horse anatomy can be incredibly useful. The horse is one of the most commonly sculpted animals, often considered the equivalent of the human figure in animal sculpture. Because of this, there's an abundance of anatomical references available. In fact, I've even 3D scanned Isidore Bonher's anatomical horse and uploaded it to my Patreon page for download. You can print it in your own 3D printer, and it makes a fantastic reference. For this type of thing, it's good to have it near you. So, in fact, horses, deer, and humans share the same muscle nomenclature: latissimus dorsi, scapulae, rib cages, but of course, their structure differs. One of the most important aspects of studying human anatomy is that once you master it, you gain a fundamental understanding of how it applies to other animals. For a sculptor, this knowledge is valuable and it allows you to adapt and interpret anatomical forms across different species with confidence. I have to admit, sculpting this whitetail deer has been a challenge. Finding good anatomical references has been difficult. When I do find one, it's usually only useful for a specific section, so I constantly have to search for more. On top of that, considering the pose adds another layer of complexity. This rigid wood armature that I used in the beginning doesn't lend itself well to adjustments later on. With the legs and neck, it had some flexibility. If it needs to shift a little bit left or right, the rib cage is so rigid that I can't really move it very well. So I'd want the entire structure to move a little bit better. That's something I'll have to rethink for future animal sculptures that I do. I lit the sculpture a little differently here because I wanted to get a better sense for the anatomy. One of my approaches is first to build up the muscles and then tone them down. A combination I see in some sculptures is that they end up being too smooth, lacking clear anatomical definition. When you look at well crafted animal sculptures, the muscles are usually well defined, but more importantly, the bones must be correct. This is something that is often overlooked, not just in animal sculptures, but in human sculptures as well. Getting the underlying structure right is what truly brings a piece to life. When we start out in sculpture, there's a tendency to rush, to jump straight to the final form. We skip over the bones, quickly add muscles, and then get caught up in the details. But in the end, that approach often leads to a big mess. I know this because I've done it myself, rushing to create something only to realize I've just made a bunch of trash. That's the story of my life. But I'm aware of this now, and I want to improve. My mindset is to slow down. Often in art schools, we're taught to push forward, to finish quickly. But sometimes we just need to take a step back, think more, and let the process unfold at the right pace. We're coming to the end of this hopefully successful whitetail deer sculpture. After this, I plan to do a 3D scan and print. It's a great way to make reproductions affordably, especially for those that don't have a lot of resources like me. With each sculpture I create, I learn something new, and I hope this process has been enjoyable for you to watch. Thanks for following along, and in the next session, we will be continuing this white-tailed deer, and I look forward to sharing more with you in the future. Thank you for watching, hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.